Hey guys, so today we have with us Nitin Singh. Nitin has been one of the best developers that I personally know of. He comes from a very humble background. He was from a very tier 2, tier 3 college, but since then he has grown very quickly in the industry and he has worked with some of the best companies. He has worked with Inmobi, he has worked with Urban Ladder, he has also worked with Razorpay. Since then, he has been working as a freelancer, earning shitload of money, and can be often found at beaches of Goa and Varkala because he's working remotely with US-based companies. So before we actually go into the deep dive into the journey, we'll start with the college part. So Nathan, how was your college life like?
Yeah, Siddharth, that was very kind of you. Those were kind words. But yeah, I mean, you're right that the college that I come from is VIT Vellore. So it's not a bad college per se, but it's not one of the great colleges as well that you might aspire to or that are considered like really, really good, right? But the good thing was that I was really interested in building stuff even in college. So me and one of my friends, we qualified for Google Bangalore's one of the competition which picked projects pan India top 10 projects, and we were one of them. And we also went to IIT Kharagpur where we won a prize worth 15,000, which is huge for someone in college, right? And that was really fun. And yeah, I mean, that really summarized my experience in college where I was constantly building stuff on the side, no matter how small, how naive, but I was always building something with software, right? And the second thing is that I distinctly remember and that I personally enjoyed about college was that I was into books. Like I like reading books end to end, and that was like really fun. And some of the books are like classics, I think, and that is where the tier 2, tier 3 disadvantage kind of goes away because it doesn't matter which college you are in as long as you have access to the same books, you have access to the same information. So that was like really, really good.
Wow. So Nathan, how did you get into your first job? How was the experience there like?
Yeah, so my college placement experience was not that great actually. Like I got the typical offer TCS, CTS, the joining date for which never came. But then I also got internship in a Mumbai-based software company. Like I don't want to name names, but it was like a pretty bad example of what a software company should be like, and they were not completely honest with us in terms of the kind of money that they were giving us, and even the package was like really, really poor compared to even my peers from VIT, right? And I knew it was a bad deal. So, but I was very clear that I was a decent developer, if not a good developer, and hence I had some tiffs there, which resulted in me leaving that company on not so good terms. So that whole experience was not so great for me. But yeah, after that I joined. I looked out after that company, right? I looked for off-campus placements through something called eLitmus, which was really popular in my time. And there, basically, I joined this company called Webyoke, and that was the polar opposite of this first company, right? Still a small company, still a really tiny company, but some of the best, amazing people that I've worked with ever, I found in that company. And so that was kind of like the transition. It was slightly rough in the sense that when you're fresh out of college and you find yourself in a bad position, you're comparing yourself to your peers and you're not happy in general because you know that the offer that you have or the job that you have is not right for you. But I think that's a very important lesson, also one of the most important ones that I have had until now, because that really taught me two things. One, that if you feel really strongly about something, you can go out and change it, right? You are not tied to that company. And the second thing that it really taught me was that it built my confidence that even though I'm from not a great college, even though my experience during placements was not good, I could still look for and find something that's good for me and something that I'm happy with. So in the end, it's a happy story, but yeah, with a few twists.
Got it. The one thing that I can take away from your story is and this is something that I tell to all the people, all the students, that have confidence in yourself. If you have done something, if you have that confidence, you can make it to anywhere. Like a lot of people, what happens is basically if they lose their job or if they have to quit in not so good terms, they lose their confidence and they start to just go haywire and start to look for companies. But if they maintain confidence, they will be able to get into great companies even.
Yeah, I mean, getting into companies actually, I personally feel like a side effect of being decent at your skills at least. So if you build up your skills and if you know what you're working on, I think it doesn't matter. Eventually, you will find that company or that job that works for you. That's inevitable. What you need to work on is not finding good companies, but to build your skill and develop a better understanding of the computer science or the engineering itself. So that is more important than focusing on finding good companies, because that's out of your control. But what is in your control is improving your skills. So that's what you should focus on.
That's actually a great point. You first told me about Webio. I hadn't even heard of its name. It was that smaller company. And then from there you straight away went into Inmobi. And for those who do not know, Inmobi actually at that time was the first Indian unicorn, that is a $1 billion valuation company. It was backed by SoftBank and is giving a great fight to companies like even Google and Facebook. So from small company like Webio to Inmobi, how was the interview process? What was the preparation like that it took for you? And did you face any challenge coming from a small company?
No, that's a very good question actually, and I had actually worked for this small company called Webio that I mentioned earlier for close to about 3 years, and during those 3 years we worked on really good projects which were at scale. We were building good stuff, quality stuff. People were really liking the software that we were building, and that app is still live. It's called Newton Mail. You can check it out. But after 3 years, basically what happened was that I kind of felt that maybe now I need to go to a bigger company where I expected that there will be bigger scale and then there will be people from IITs and NITs and so basically smart people, right? And I'll get to learn a lot more. So that was my perception, and with that I started to narrow down companies. And like you said, at that point, Inmobi was like a unicorn. It was a big thing, and even still is, right? So I basically looked up online what everyone does, interview questions for Inmobi, and I to basically get a sense of what the interview process is really like, right? And which was actually helpful because that gave me some structure for what to study. And then I figured that okay, there is a pattern here. You basically study your data structure and algorithms. You brush up on that. Then you really brush up on things like architecture. I was in mobile apps, so I really made sure that I understood or brushed up my Android knowledge. I was working on Android at that point, and since I was already working on a in a very small company, so I knew my project very well. Like I didn't even have to study that because I worked on that for 3 years. Like I could answer anything about that. So that is something that did not need preparation for me. But these are the 3 things that I figured if I do it well, it should be fine. And then I went on then I went for interview over there, and then it was actually as per my expectations, in the sense that they first asked me about data structure. Then I was also applying for an Android plus JavaScript role. So they asked about JavaScript fundamentals, and then they focused on the project that I worked on, and then they gave this design problem, which was kind of related to the projects that I had worked on. So I was like super comfortable over there. If I'm being very honest, once I was back from the interviews, I was actually laughing at how easy it was. But not in a bragging, I don't mean in a bragging sense. What I mean is that since I had worked in that smaller company, even though it was a small company, on good project, right? The projects that were really advanced in terms of the features that they were using and the technology that we were building. That was the moment I realized it doesn't matter small company, big company. If you really know what you're working on, if you really have a good grip on your skills, rest just doesn't matter. So that is what I figured that day, and that's how the process was.
Great. Webio, then Inmobi, then Urban Ladder, then finally Razorpay. So Nitin has been to a lot of companies, given a lot of interviews. He has also taken hundreds of interviews during his journey. So Nitin, what do you actually look for in a candidate when you are interviewing him or her?
So I focus on a few things. Some of them are technical, obviously, and some of them are non-technical. I'll just list them down first, right? So one of the things that I do look for is solid computer science fundamentals. I'm not interested in whether you can solve the traveling salesman problem in 10 minutes or whatever, right? I don't care about that. What I do care about is whatever you say you have worked on, whatever you say you do know, and that is coming from you. How well do you know it, right? Can I trick you into answering something wrong? And that does not mean that I ask something obscure in the documentation. That means whether you understand the basics, right? Then the second thing that I look for is whether you have actually worked on the project that you say that you have worked on, and how much of it do you really understand, right? Then the rest of the stuff that I think are more important than this, if not as important, but are harder to judge during an interview. But if you can showcase it to the interviewer, I think it gives them a real confidence in making a positive decision for you. So those things would be reliability, like how reliable you are. Like, do you do what you say and say what you do? That is one quality. And the second quality is that when there is a failure or if there is a mishap, like how do you handle that? Do you tend to blame it on others, or do you actually take responsibility and try and improve on that? Now, I would agree that these two things are very hard to judge in an interview, but in my duration as a manager and as a tech lead, these were the two qualities that I most admired in a person at any level, basically. If you are reliable and if you are a team player, it solves 90% of the problem, and that is what people are looking for. Because skill you can always improve, right? But these are like ethics, so you need to have these ethics, and these are incredibly valuable. And these are the things that you don't get from any college or whatever, right? These are things that you can decide to start doing tomorrow. So these things like really matter.
Got it. So just to summarize, two things. One is, do you really know what you claim to know? And secondly, whether you have a right attitude, you're a team player or not. So Nitin has actually seen a tremendous growth path despite coming from humble background. He actually went into Immobi as a senior software developer. From there, he went to Urban Ladder. He jumped as a tech lead. And in Razorpay, when he quit, he was a manager there. So he has seen a tremendous growth path. And if you would have continued, then I am pretty sure you would have gone even further right now. But you still chose to, leave behind everything and take a very risky path of basically freelancing. So what all thoughts did went into your mind while taking that decision?
Yeah, so being at Razorpay was actually really great in the sense that it's one of the fastest growing companies in India right now, and they have very smart people, interesting people working for them, and my team was like really good, right? But one of the things that I was missing was actually building stuff from scratch, and that was kind of missing. And that, in combination with the fact that lately you may call it age or whatever, I was like really protective of my time, and I saw that in a normal 9 to 5 setup you end up wasting a lot of time while working on maybe less interesting stuff, right? As compared to what you could normally. So that's why I decided that let me give it a shot. So I did not find it risky, like you said, in the sense that I did not just jump cold turkey into that. What I did was that I tried to find clients while I was at that job and see if that was feasible. And the moment I got confidence that yes, it's a feasible option, and yes, the projects are good, and yes, the lifestyle that I'm creating for myself is actually very good. That is, I get to create good stuff, I get to work on good projects with great people, and at the same time I have none of the disadvantages like stupid Bangalore traffic. So I realized at that point, okay, I don't think it's risky, because if you're talking about leaving a job as a risk, I could always go back to another job, maybe at Razorpay, maybe somewhere else in a couple of months. So I don't see risk there in that sense. But yeah, building stuff and working in a very pure way without all the fluff that comes with a big organization, that was the main motivation.
Got it. So that's actually a very important point, that at this stage, if you are I think this has been a constant theme in Nitin's life, that he had a confidence in himself always. So that's why he could always take risk. He could always, jump into freelancing when he was doing a very great job. Nitin, I think there's a very, when we talk of freelancing, people have the same set of questions. One is how do you find clients? What are clients actually looking for you in? And right now, most of your clients are in US. So basically, there's a very big time gap. So does things actually work out over there or not? So how does it go about in freelancing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, Siddharth. So I think one of the first questions that comes to people's mind is that how do you find clients, right? So we are so used to structure because of our whole bringing up and whatnot that we always look to others for answers, but becoming a freelancer is and not having any contacts already in that community is kind of like slightly like entrepreneurship in a way that you have to find your own path.
Yeah.
So it's not as hard as it used to be. I think now there are dedicated forums like We Work Remotely, and even on Stack Overflow and LinkedIn you can filter specifically for jobs which allow remote work, and a lot more companies with the penetration of internet are allowing for remote jobs now. So it's not that hard. Yes, it requires a bit of persistence, but in terms of finding actually landing a client and then keeping a client, right? So that requires two things, I think, most importantly. One is the thing that I mentioned earlier, that you have to be extremely reliable because there is a time zone difference. The client cannot see you. You're working over, if you're working with a US client, you're working most likely over a 10-11 hour time difference, right? So you need to be very clear in communication, and you also need to be very reliable. You cannot be flaky. If you schedule a call, even if it happens to be at a inconvenient time at times, you need to show up on time, right? You cannot be that guy who, if the client is waiting and you're not there or you're showing half an hour late. So that does not give them that confidence because they don't have that kind of physical connect with you, right? So that is the most important thing: communication and being reliable. And the second thing is obviously you need to be a self-starter, because in a remote environment, no one is going to come and say, "Hey, do this, do that," right? You have to be able to break down the problem into smaller chunks, then execute it, keep the other guy posted at the same time, and ask for help when needed. And you will be surprised how easy it goes if you follow these two things.
Got it. So then one question that a lot of freshers have, especially those who are in small towns, is it possible for an inexperienced or fresher to have a remote job or let's say land a freelance client?
That will be slightly harder. The reason for that is, one, you don't have the kind of confidence where you can build up something in isolation. Now, this is not, I'm not saying that a fresher or a person with very less experience cannot find remote job. The way that would be most effective for someone like that would be to find a company which only hires remotely. There are now companies which are 100% remote. One of the biggest examples, and you would never guess that, is something called GitLab. I'm sure all of you or some of you might have heard of it. That is a 400 plus company which is all remote. They don't have a physical office. So companies that are set up like that, that's an easy target. So look for things like that. And GitLab is one example, but there are thousands, if not tens of thousands, companies like that. So then it becomes like interviewing for any other company, right? Just that in the end you get the perk of working remotely.
Right.
So that is what you should target if you are like a fresher, or you don't have that confidence that I can build something in isolation by myself, because pure freelancing in terms of projects and all, that is slightly advanced because you won't have that support structure, and actually the client is paying you to have that expertise, which you don't have. So it doesn't make much sense for any of us.
Absolutely, that's like a very valid point. Is there any message for people who would want to get into tech sector today, who would want to have a great tech career like you?
Yeah, so like I have been saying constantly, other than developing those work ethics, one of the most important things, which is a non-negotiable thing, is to develop the skills, and that is where I think the kind of initiative you guys have taken at Newton School, right? It's really good in the sense that it's exposing people who need that kind of exposure and who don't have any other means of, because information you can find anywhere, but exposure to the kind of stuff that the industry actually expects. That is what I think you guys are doing really well. And I've seen your course structure and it's very relevant. Like it is something, the things that you guys are teaching is something that I would ask a potential candidate, or I would ask during the interview. So it's very real stuff. So I think that is one thing you can do to develop your skill. You always have access to things like Top Coder and whatnot, but I think joining a course like what you guys do at Newton, or basically figuring out what people or the companies are looking for, and then building your skills accordingly. That is, I think, the real deal.
Thank you, Nitin, so much for being with us today. It was, really great talking to you.
Yeah, Siddharth, I really enjoyed this session and the kind of work that you guys are doing here. I think it's really important for the people who need it most. So, great job.
Thank you so much.